Danielle, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I want to say right off the top, Happy New Year. You've had a busy 2019. What was it like for you?
Oh, well, Happy New Year to you, too. It was, 2019 was really crazy. It was there of my first and second single. And those singles took me across Canada. And I went to a bunch of I did 2 different radio tours, twice to Ontario, and then I went out east and out west, which was really cool. I'd never been out east or out west before, so that was fun. And I also got to go to my first CCNAs, which was also really cool. And I'm gearing up to head to Australia this year.
I was going to say, January is going to be busy for you because you're in Australia, you're all over the place.
I know, it's pretty cool. So Australia really supported both my singles, Crazy and Back Burner. And I had my first top 30 hit in Australia with Back Burner, which was amazing. I couldn't have expected that on my second single, but it went straight up the charts, which was really cool. And so I figured, I just got to go where the support really is. And so I applied for a festival out there, and they got back to me with like 12 dates booked in that one festival. So it's going to be a crazy, crazy tour over there.
Well, congratulations on Back Burner. We're going to talk about that in a second. I have to ask you right off the top, what is the connection with you and the Australians?
Well, I actually lived there a few years back. I just went over there to travel, and I really liked it. So I got a working visa, and I just traveled doing music all over the country. And so kind of any excuse to get back there is an excuse that I'm going to make. So when my music went well over there, I was like, okay, we need to do a tour because, I just love that country. I love the people over there and just the country in general and traveling. So I'm really excited to go back.
Well, look, we're going to take you back here to Canada, back here in Ontario, and want to talk a little about your history, the love of music, where that all began in country music, too.
Yeah. I grew up listening to all sorts of different types of music. My dad was in a rock band when I was really young, and he was touring. And then in the 90s, he actually hurt his back, and so he was bedridden for about 6 months. And in that time, he kind of decided that he wanted to put together a country band. And so that's when I started to listen to all the country music because he was learning it. And I just fell in love with Shania and Trisha Yearwood and all those 90s country stars, especially the females because I was a little girl. And so I used to sing all that stuff all the time. And that's kind of how I grew up. And then later on when I was in high school, I just picked a guitar and the piano and decided that I wanted to do music full time. So I went out searching for gigs and making up pieces. I went to places and asked them if I could perform there, even if they didn't have live music. And that's just kind of what I did ever since high school.
Broadway, though, how did this all get involved in your life?
What was that? Sorry?
Broadway.
Oh, Broadway in Nashville.
Yes.
I so I was visiting Nashville quite a bit for a few years before I moved there, and I actually had never visited Broadway. I never went down there. I always did the songwriters night, and then when I finally decided to move, it was just because every time I went down there, everyone kept saying, "If you're not here, you're not going to make any kind of advances or connections that are going to stay. You have to stay where the opportunities are." So I moved down there, and I thought, how am I going to make a living? And so that's what brought me onto Broadway. And so that's kind of my job side of things, and music is my job, my career, and my passion now, which is funny. But yeah, I moved down there and just kind of jumped on Broadway and started playing with a bunch of different bands and making connections that way. And that was my whole first year of living down there, was just figuring out how to survive on Broadway.
Now, here's the thing that people should realize, and I've said this in other interviews too, when you head over there, people are just thinking, oh, it's just country music. But really, that area is so much about, it's almost like a think tank for whatever genre of music. What do you think that you took from that? Because like I said, you've got great songwriters. You got new songwriters. There's so many different aspects and so many different genres of music. What was it like for you to see that, experience that, and how do you think it changed you in your career?
Yes, there are all different types of music in Nashville. There's blues, there's a hip-hop scene, there's a really strong indie scene, there's all sorts of different music. And I'll be honest, when I say before I moved to Nashville, I didn't completely know what my sound was. I always just called myself singer-songwriter because I never really worked with bands too much, and I didn't do my own original music with bands. But when I moved down there, I really fell in love with the traditional country sound. I loved that I could go out on Broadway, even, to Roberts or to 3rd and Lindsley and see the Time Jumpers. And that's old country swing. And I really enjoyed those kind of acoustic instruments, the banjo, the fiddle, all that stuff. And that is really kind of what shaped my sound. But you're right, there are all different types of music down there. And so I was really interested in just seeing everything. And I think that when it comes down to songwriting, that's when I really mixed into a bunch of different genres. I write with an R&B girl all the time for her music. And it's cool because it really challenges me to go outside of the country genre.
Okay, and here's the thing that I also want to point out to a lot of folks, too. Just because you are a country artist, these days, country music isn't like a box. Dean Brody is a great example where he's mixed in country music and reggae music. Like right now, especially now, and Canadian country music, it can go in any way possible. And I think it's a great time for country music.
I think so, too. I love it. Another artist is, Keith Urban. He always stays so current with everything that he releases. And I like to do that, too. I like to have enough of a pop element that it's modern enough to go on radio and that it's relevant to people today. But if you hear my first instant single, you'll still hear the banjo and the dobro and those kind of classic vibe elements in the songs as well, just because that's where my heart is. But you're right. People can play whatever they want and fit with their country.
Yep. And, of course, one of your heroes, Shania Twain, made a great example when she released a country, rock, and pop song, all of the same song. So, like I said, country music is just so open these days. But you ended up in 2019 releasing 2 singles. What was the first one?
My first single was Crazy, and I wrote that with 2 girls actually at a songwriter retreat. And we were thrown into a room together on the very first day. We didn't even know each other's names. And we came up with that song. And I just remember being so excited about it when we were writing it. And then we got to perform it that night. And everyone at the retreat really liked it. And when we left, I contacted the girls and just said, can I have this song? And then it was really cool bringing it into production because it was kind of the first time where we took a couple runs at it to see what sound I ultimately wanted. And the way that it came out is just exactly how I wanted it, with the different sounds and the story. You can hear the story and everything in it. And I was just really proud of the production on it.
And what is the story?
It's basically just about falling so head over heels in love. A person that is kind of stubborn and doesn't really want to be in love, but then it just happens and they fall harder than they ever kind of imagined.
That's actually a nice story. I like hearing that. But, of course, you had a second single that, of course, has taken us into 2020. What's the second one?
That was Back Burner, and that was a bit of a different side. It still, production-wise, has that country pop sound to it. But the story is basically about kind of gaining enough confidence to walk away from a relationship that isn't good for you anymore. And there's a lot of that back and forth. And then by the end of the song, you're walking away from it, which I thought was kind of, confident and fierce. And I wanted to get that sound across in the recording and in the story.
You strike it up, then you put it out. You hit the road, then you back around. You light me up, then you put me on the back burner. I might be your thing.
What's been the reaction from fans with that one?
Oh, people love it. It's really cool to see the fans even just requesting it, to people requested all the time on radio, and then they requested at my shows. And it's funny when I'm downtown Nashville and I'm all in my cover mode and I'm playing, Bon Jovi and Shania and Eminem and Metallica, and then all of a sudden somebody says, "Can you play Back Burner?" And I think, what song is that? And they're like, "Your song." So that's kind of cool when that happens. If I don't recognize the person and they've just followed me and come down to Nashville and they requested on stage, it's a pretty cool feeling.
Well, we already know 2020 you're touring in January. Are we looking at other spots throughout the year? Also, with 2 singles, will be a third following, and could there be an EP or album in ways?
Yeah, so after my Australian tour, I'm going to be focusing a lot just on writing. I have a whole bunch of songs that I'm working on all the time, but I always just want to keep writing. So there's definitely going to be more music coming out this year. And I know for sure that I'll be doing a few things back in Ontario in the summer, different festivals and different shows back home. So there'll be a chance to catch me live in Ontario and maybe any other place in Canada. We don't have a whole bunch of dates booked outside of Ontario yet, but we're looking into it. So.
Okay. Well, whether you're in the U.S., Canada, or Australia, social media is a place to go to follow you. Where do we go?
Yeah, so I'm on everything: Spotify, Instagram and Twitter is Danielle_Todd, and then Facebook and anywhere you can stream music, you can find both my singles. And you can also, I have a fan group on Facebook called the Hot Toddies, and it's just a really cool street team, and everyone kind of gets together in there and shares videos and photos and helps each other out and helps me out and contests and stuff like that. So that's a really cool one to follow. It's called the Hot Toddies. And you can sign up for my mailing list as well on my website, which is danielletoddmusic.ca.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for making time with me. Love a safe trip in Australia, and looking forward to talking to you again. Cross fingers we're going to run into each other at the CCMAs, because I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's either in London or in Hamilton. I think it's Hamilton. I could be wrong.
I think
sorry.
it's Hamilton. Yeah,
I think it's Hamilton. So, as a Torontonian, that's a hop, skip, and jump. So looking forward to talking to you there, and just looking forward to everything you're doing in 2020. Thank you again for the interview.
Thank you so much.